Choice of our nation, our chieftain so brave and so true, go for the great Reformation, for Lincoln and liberty too. They'll find what by felling and mauling our railmaker statesmen can do. For the people are everywhere calling for Lincoln and liberty too. I love that old song. It's an old Irish air that was rewritten as a campaign song for Lincoln. My name is Elihu Powell. I'm a lawyer, a judge, a dear friend of Lincoln, a man who stood with him in many court cases and invited him here to Peoria to refute Stephan Douglas and helped him with political campaigns as well. I was born in Steubenville, Ohio in 1809. And for a while I had the notion to be a jeweler. Well, I tried that profession out, and it seemed to me it was somewhat, shall we say, tick-tock, monotonous. She has the right idea. I preferred the passions of the human heart to the ticking of a watch, and so I enrolled in law school. I became a lawyer, and I graduated with honors from Cincinnati Law School, and it was there that I met a future partner of mine, William Bryan, and also another man. A man who was Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of War, Edward Stanton. Well, I went west. I went all the way west. Clear to Pekin, Illinois. Settled there and lived there for a short while, and then moved across the river here to Peoria and fell in with the usual cast of characters in the legal trade. Charles Ballance, John and Cynthia Hamlin, Norman Purple, you know the gang. Well, when we weren't opposing Lincoln in court, we were trying to hire him. He worked with me in the case of Clarissa Wren, the young lady you just met. And he was brilliant on that case. You see, I felt I had handled the case rather poorly in local courts, and when it came time to take it to the Illinois Supreme Court, I needed some assistance. So I called Mr. Lincoln, he agreed, and he turned the whole case around. He changed the argument from one of divorce to one of property rights, a case we could win, and we did. Well, what I'd like to speak to you about today is the first unofficial Lincoln-Douglas debate. Did you know that it took place right here in Peoria at the county courthouse? Now, Stephan Douglas was out speaking. This was 1854, October to be exact, and he was out speaking about the Kansas-Nebraska Act that he had just rammed through Congress. Now, the Kansas-Nebraska Act was a slap in the face to that carefully crafted Missouri Compromise, and it opened the door for slavery in the western states. And you all know how Lincoln felt about that. Well, he heard Douglas speak at the State Fair in Springfield, and it riled him up, and the next day he went back and gave an impromptu speech that left the audience, the crowd, was awestruck. They were breathless when he got finished. We found out Douglas was coming here to Peoria, and I wrote a letter to Mr. Lincoln, signed by Messrs. Ballance and Purple and many others, and I asked Lincoln if he would come and refute Douglas. He agreed. Now, Douglas, when he spoke, he went on and on and on and on, right up to the dinner hour, and Lincoln knew, he knew that no matter how good you were, you just couldn't compete with fried chicken. So he took a calculated risk. He told everyone to go home and get yourself something to eat. When you're done, come back and I'll speak in the cool of the evening. And his gamble paid off because more people came back. They brought their friends and neighbors to see Lincoln. More came to see him than had seen Douglas. And it was right there on the steps of the courthouse that Lincoln first uttered those immortal words, those powerful words. A house divided against itself cannot stand. This government will not long remain half slave and half free. I'd heard Lincoln speak before. I knew he was good. He was a fine backwoods storyteller, but something was different now. He had spent one term in Congress, learned a lot, came back to be a private citizen and ride the circuit. And in that time, he had become, he had become a lawyer and a legal scholar of astounding high regard. And he presented a carefully crafted argument. And Douglas? He was shook. He didn't know what to do. So he jumped on a steamboat, went up to Lake in Illinois, and proceeded to speak there. And guess who followed him? Abraham Lincoln. He looked at Lincoln and he said, "Why are you following me? You're not running for office." Lincoln said, "As long as you keep spewing that bile, I will respond." And he did. Douglas canceled his speech that day. Lincoln took steamboat back downstream, and then Douglas turned right around and spoke anyway. And that set up those debates, those famous debates. You know, I think it was at the debate in Ottawa. Douglas trying to score a few points. He said, "When I first met Abraham Lincoln, he was a shopkeep selling whiskey and cigars." Lincoln turned right around and said, "Judge Douglas is absolutely right. When we first met, I was a shopkeep selling calico and sugar and salt and what have you, maybe a couple of cigars and a little bit of whiskey. But the difference between us is thus. Whilst I was on my side of the counter selling, Judge Douglas was on his side of the counter buying." One of my best customers, if I recollect. "And the difference between us is thus. Whilst I have left my side of the counter long ago, Judge Douglas sticks as tenaciously as ever to his own." Oh, man. Those debates, they changed the course of the conversation in this country. No longer could anyone sit on the fence. The battle lines had been drawn. And Lincoln had it exactly right when he said, slavery is wrong on moral grounds. It allows those who are enemies of freedom to look at us and see hypocrites. Well, as you might know, Lincoln won those debates, but he lost the election. But it did set the stage for his run for the presidency. And y'all know what happened then. And I was part of that. Helped him get elected. And I'm right proud of that. Hurrah for the choice of our nation, our chieftain so brave and so true. For the great Reformation, for Lincoln and liberty too. They'll find what by felling and mauling our railmaker statesmen can do. People are everywhere calling for Lincoln and liberty too. And up with our banner so glorious, the star-spangled red, white, and blue. We'll fight till our banner's victorious, for Lincoln and liberty too. We'll go for the boy from Kentucky, the hero of Hoosierdom. Pride and succor